The views and opinions expressed on this program do not reflect the company, owners, management, staff, clients, or partners.
All right, it's Thursday, the 28th day of October, 2021. Welcome to the Daily Hour, brought to you by Medical House One Communications and Lindo's. I'm Jamal Hartman, along with Sherry Vanderpool, and Leanna Lambert will be with us in a bit to bring you the latest in her news break, brought to you by People's Pharmacy. Sherry, it's Thursday, a tough week for Bermuda. I think it was a tough night for our Braves last night, but how are you today?
I'm doing well. Yeah, so definitely a tough week for Bermuda, and I believe it was a tough night for the Braves. I turned it off real early because I'm just like, you know what? I mean, and don't get me wrong, I'm not giving up on my team. It's just that, I got to be here and be present. And so I can't, give in my energy to that shenanigans for right now.
But I applaud you. I think we're in the same boat. I said I'm not putting up with this. I went to sleep and said, let me get ready for the show that is today. But we're gonna have a different format for those who are just tuning in. This is going to be an exclusive regarding the murder investigation with Assistant Commissioner of Police Antoine Daniels. So we're going to bring Leanna in a bit early for the news break. She'll give you a news break. We'll go to a commercial, and then we'll have Assistant Commissioner of Police Antoine Daniels on for an extended period. So good morning, everyone, and thanks for making us part of your daily routine. As stated, a very important conversation with the Assistant Commissioner of Police, and he's going to provide some updates about the murder investigation and just what we can do, what all of us can do to play a part in ensuring not only that we bring the perpetrators to justice, but that it doesn't happen again. We're still going to do the daily play. It's a Name That Place, and there's a pattern here. So let's see if our sister Sherry can get it right. But let's bring Leanna into the conversation. Lee, I know it's different for you when we do this, but some conversations require more time.
Understood.
And we know that you still have a lot of important information to share. So I'll let you take it away. All right.
Thank you.
All right. No problem. Over to you.
Thanks, Jamal and Sherry, and good morning to everyone tuned in with us today. Despite it all, today is still a thankful Thursday, and I hope you all are having a great start to your day. I'm Leanna Lambert, and it's time for the Daily Hour News Break, brought to you by People's Pharmacy. Police have officially launched an investigation following Tuesday's shooting at Robin Hood Bar, which saw 2 men shot dead and another 2 injured and in hospital. The victims were yesterday named by police as 22-year-old Micah Davis, who was celebrating his birthday, and 27-year-old Ayinde Eve. Now, it has been confirmed that the other 2 shooting victims, one including an off-duty officer who was shot in his hand, was treated at the hospital and later released. The 4th victim, who is said to be related to one of the murder victims, remains in hospital. Now, so far, no arrests have been made in connection with the shooting. However, Acting Assistant Commissioner Nicholas Pedro said that the incident was gang-related, specifically involving the Parkside Gang. Describing the shooting as a brazen gun attack, he said that the Bermuda Police Service is committing significant resources to ensure they bring not only the shooters, but the people who ordered the shootings to justice. This is the first double murder since January 23rd, 2013. More sad news coming in this morning after it was reported that a serious collision happened just after 4 p.m. on North Shore Road in Smiths yesterday, leaving one person with life-threatening injuries. Now, emergency services were called to the incident near the junction with Tamarisk Hill in Smiths. The vehicles were headed in opposite directions when they collided. Now, the car heading west apparently flipped onto the passenger side with the driver, a 30-year-old male, trapped underneath. He was taken to hospital in an unresponsive state. Meanwhile, the female driver of the other car complained of chest pains, though her injuries were not considered to be life-threatening. Bermuda has hit the 100 mark as two more COVID-19 related deaths were recorded in yesterday's latest update. Active cases, however, continue to fall with only 12 new recorded. Curfews will be coming to an end next Monday, while the group sizes will increase from 20 to 30 persons. And Belco crews attempted to restore power in the Pembroke and Sands area yesterday after two utility poles were damaged. Now, Belco officials say that a commercial truck hit a pole on Serpentine Road in Pembroke around 10:30 a.m. The incident left about 170 customers in the area without power. Now, in a separate incident, another utility pole in the White Hill area of Sands caught fire shortly after 10 a.m. The damage cut power to about 950 residents. Now, crews attended both areas to repair damaged infrastructure and restore power to customers. Taking a look at today's weather, we have a high near 78 and a low near 72 degrees. We'll see a mix of sun and clouds with a couple of showers towards midday. By tomorrow, we'll see more settled weather developing for a time, mainly a mix of sun and clouds with increasing cloud developing overnight. That's all for our daily hour news break brought to you by People's Pharmacy, but we can't leave you without giving you a helpful little tip from our favorite community pharmacists. Now, using a medication tracking app or getting your medication prepared in blister packs can help you remember to take your medication and improve your health. Check with People's Pharmacy about how they can help you with your medicine organization. Your vitamins can be organized as well. Now let's head back to Jamal and Sherry in the studio for today's Daily Focus.
I joke about this, right? And it's not a joke, but I joke because it's like Liana is like the most bubbly person. Like, folks, I accept my grumpiness, right? I really do. She's the most bubbliest person. Sherry is the bubbly like person, like the happy people. And the fact that Liana is given a task of probably the saddest part of the show at times really, really hurts my heart. It really does. Like Charles just said, dang, Liana, is there any good news? And the sad part is everything that's there, everything that is of importance to the community just is said. And it's up to us, honestly, to create that good news that we all want. But Lee, thank you so much for that. And hopefully your smile has brightened somebody's day, even if the news hasn't.
I hope so. You guys have a great day. And today is the first day of the Bermuda or Butterfield Bermuda Championships at Port Royal Golf Course. We have 5 locals playing today. So that is good news, just so I can end it on a good topic this morning.
Quick question before you go. Are you one of the locals playing?
I wish. You know what? I'm going to practice. And one day I might make it. My golf career is just getting off the ground. Okay.
Nice.
All right. I heard she knows a little something. So, but we're gonna have some golf game. We'll find out. Lee. Enjoy your day. Stay dry, and we will see you tomorrow.
Bye, guys. You too.
Bye.
Liana Lambert there, folks, doing her thing. Good morning to everyone out there. Yes, we see you. We see you. We see you. As stated, we are going to have an exclusive conversation with the Assistant Commissioner of Police, Antoine Daniels, this morning regarding the latest in the murder investigation. He's going to share some updates. You're going to have an extended period of time to ask some questions. And if there's anything, just honestly, I'll do my best to get to as many questions and comments as possible. This is one of those conversations where I'll continue to encourage you to share the link, retweet it, just get as many Bermudians to tune into what the Assistant Commissioner is saying, but also to engage with him to see things that only the media has the opportunity at press conferences to ask questions. This is your opportunity. Keep it respectful, keep it concise. All right, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be back with the Assistant Commissioner of Police, Antoine Daniels.
The use of butter goes back millennia, and its exalted status in the cooking world and in so many kitchens is undeniable. Around 3,000 years ago, ghee, or clarified butter, was developed in India and is the cooking oil of choice in many regions of the subcontinent, and compared to butter has a higher smoke point, reduced dairy solids, and a more robust, nuanced flavor. And to Organic Valley, creators of a certified organic version of this versatile traditional staple. This month we're featuring Organic Valley Ghee Clarified Butter. Lindo's, why go anyplace else?
Mom's celebrating her 70th birthday next month. Have you noticed her age is catching up with her?
Yeah. Plus, she's having a hard time getting up and around like she's used to. I would sure hate to see her fall.
At Medical House Limited, we can help make life situations easier. We have electric beds, motorized scooters, bath stools, walkers, you name it.
Mom's been real good to us. We'll get her birthday and Christmas gifts from Medical House.
Medical House has relocated next to the Dendy Town Field. Number 6 Bakery Lane, Pembroke. Telephone 292-3622.
All right, welcome back to the big show. Sherry Vanderpool, Jamal Hartman, Michaela is out. It's the Daily Hour brought to you by Medical House, One Communications, Lindo's, and People's Pharmacy. So let's just go over a few things before we bring the Assistant Commissioner of Police on to the show today. So as we know, there was a shooting that took place at Robin Hood on the 26th of October. Around 6 p.m., the police received several 911 calls. And at this point, they've reported that 2 of the victims succumbed to their injuries. Micah Davis, who was celebrating his 22nd birthday, and Ayinde Eve at 27. 2 other persons, including an off-duty police officer, were also shot, and I believe the officer was treated and released. 1 victim remains recovering from surgery. As Leanna said, 1 victim was the brother of one of the deceased. Over 20 rounds of ammunition were discharged. I repeat, over 20 rounds of ammunition were discharged. All right. Let's bring in Assistant Commissioner of Police, Antoine Daniels. Like I said, folks, I encourage you to engage, share this conversation, and let's get the community involved and see what we can do to make Bermuda a safer place, not just to help bring the perpetrators to justice, but to these preventable measures, what we can do to prevent these things from happening. Welcome to the show, Assistant Commissioner Daniels. How are you?
Good
Morning, Jamal. Morning, Sherry. How are you today? I'm great, thanks.
Good. Firstly, thank you. I know that many of your officers are extremely busy, and it was tough getting you to do this, but thank you for coming and engaging with us so that we can ensure that if our audience knows something, that they can say something. But I just read some of the facts. Leanna's reported some things, and obviously we've watched the press conference. We've seen the news. We've read the news. But what concerns investigators most about this particular incident?
Well, first of all, I just want to start by saying good morning to Jamal, Sherry, and your audience. Thank you for having me. I must note that, Jamal, I don't want to say you only call me when you want me to speak about tragic events, but that appears to happen. It's often when I come before this Daily Hour show, I'm always speaking about something that's pretty ugly to speak about. I get reminded if I go to one supermarket in Bermuda, I have one of the talents that always calls me the movie star or TV star, because she always, throughout my career, she's followed me, seeing me on traditional media and more recently the social media remit. And she says, and I tell her, she says, I haven't seen you on television lately. And I'm saying that's actually a good thing, because that means nothing bad is happening. So,
yes,
because I come on television and I always talk about, the tragedies. I don't get to talk about the police gymkhana or how we support the older people at the police week functions and that type of stuff. So I don't get to give the nice jolly stuff. So I just want to highlight that. And it does take a toll. Actually, on me, myself, I was thinking, sometimes driving to work, do I really want to, continue? You almost say, do you really want to do this anymore? Because every time you come to work, it's something quite tragic. Yeah. So I just want to stop with that. And then the second thing, I just want to send my sincere condolences to the family of the young man. I don't know if any of you are aware, but we had I think our 13th road traffic fatality yesterday afternoon. So just my sincere condolences go out to that family, because death is never ever an easy thing. So my sincere condolences from me on behalf of my colleagues at the Bermuda Police Service. So in terms of this event, Jamal, there were some differences and there were some similarities to previous instances. But one of the more shocking things from this that really stood out to investigators was that instead of being one person with a firearm, there were two. So that was quite different, because normally you have a rider of a cycle, and then the person who's the passenger usually jumps off, or he sits on the back and he sprays wherever he's shooting at. So this was a different. Hopefully this is not a start of a different trend where you have two firearms persons coming to commit these tragic acts. The other thing that was pretty disturbing was that this was committed at a local restaurant that's regularly frequented by families, young kids, business persons that go over there to watch, a range of sports. They do takeout pizzas, that type of stuff. That's really, really concerning for us, because if you think about it, in Bermuda, generally people feel safe, right? Because firearms overall are illegal. It's not like in our neighbors to the U.S. where they have, carry laws where people can walk around quite freely with firearms in certain states. In Bermuda, that's actually prohibited. So can you imagine if you're at a grocery store or a theater or a shopping mall or something like that, and someone pulls out a firearm? It's quite frightening for people. So that's the second thing that was really, really struck. But one of the positive things I must say, and I always have to take the opportunity to thank our witnesses, because sometimes as police officers we can come across as insensitive, not intentionally, but we can come, because all we do is we sometimes come out and we say, hey, listen, in order to resolve this matter, we need witnesses. And sometimes we may not subconsciously take into consideration the type of things that our people, particularly on a small island like Bermuda, have to go through and consider before they put themselves forward to become a witness in such a serious case, particularly if the firearm hasn't been seized. You have gangs in and about the community who seek revenge and the like. So I have to take this opportunity to really thank those people who come forward day in, day out to support the police, make their community a better place, to live, visit, and work, because it's very important. Without them, we can't do it alone. So a big thank you from me and my colleagues on that one.
Gosh, Antoine, that was still a lot. But what can the community do to assist the Bermuda Police Service with this investigation? What can we do?
Well, the first thing is if you are aware of anything involved in this or any other case, it doesn't have to be this, because as we know, there are not multiple firearms in Bermuda. Well, there are a number of firearms. So even before these type of crimes happen, if you have any information and are aware that there are firearms in around or in the hands of persons that they shouldn't be, then you should get in touch with the police. And if you don't feel comfortable with the police, of course, you can call the 1-800 number 8477 of the Crime Stoppers, which is key, because not everybody's going to feel comfortable with the police. The other big thing I must note, Bermuda being a small island nation, people know each other. So, for example, someone may have information and they may not be comfortable speaking with Jamal Hartman, but they may be comfortable speaking to Antoine Daniels, who is a policeman, because they knew me, they grew up with me, and the like. So even if you don't want to call in a formal sense, if you know someone or a friend of a police officer, family, reach out to them and allow them to share the information so that we can target these guys. In terms of this particular case, I think I forwarded it to Jamal directly from the appeal from our investigators yesterday, and I think they're looking for anyone with any information, whether you think it's significant or not. Let us decide whether it's critical or not. If you have dash cams, CCTV, if you have, footage from cameras, ring doorbell cameras, you would have seen two guys up on a bike with the descriptions that were provided. They're all over social media, it's all in the today and yesterday, as Rogue was at the descriptions of these persons who we believe to. If you have any information, please, share it with the police, as because if we can get these little pieces and put them together, then we can build, a stronger case. So it's very important to support the police in these difficult times. And then the other innovative thing that we've done, we've now set up a portal, so a web portal, so whereby you can go on to this web portal, and the address is given as well in all of the media, and you can actually share video, you can share information, you can share footage from actual events with the police. So even if you don't know the persons that are involved, if you share this information, maybe we can identify these people and be able to get the requisite evidence to be able to place them before the courts.
All right. Before we go into more preventative stuff on this, okay, so I want to stick with where you're at with people, because I didn't even realize, like, I'm the most oblivious person you'll probably meet, and that's not something I smile about. It's just my nature.
Right.
There are a lot of people that are like that, and I think it only happened for me after living in a big place like New York. Like, you just stay focused and do your thing. How can we, like, for a person that is so focused on driving and so on, and they may actually see something and they're bumping to the music, is there something like that you can say that, just focus on what's happening around you? I mean, it can help you in more than just helping the police with an investigation. It can help you avoid accidents, stuff like that. Is there a mindset shift culturally that needs to take place for people to become more aware?
Yeah, I think we all should be aware of our surroundings. Not to say that Bermuda is this unsafe place. However, we should be conscious of our surroundings, particularly when we're in our evenings and mornings, when you may have a number of young women who walk alone or exercise alone. They have to be really conscious, especially if you're walking, like, say, on a railway trail, or you're training on a dark street. It's very important to be conscious and aware of your surroundings. And if you should see something that is, that's because you have a sense, right? A sixth sense of if it's right or wrong. And if you're suspicious of something, then you should report it, because you never know the day before, the week before, or the month before what could have happened in that particular area or another area that links those particular incidents. So it's always important to share that information. And like I said, even if you're not willing to share it formally with the police, please tell a friend of the police or share it with Crime Stoppers, so that we can consolidate this information, and it makes it a lot more easier and effective when we're pursuing these persons that are creating the most harm in our community.
What can the community do to help prevent further acts of violence?
That's a difficult question, because there are, when you do studies on the causations of crime, right? It goes all over the place. And now what makes it more complex is you add in people are using weird types of drugs that some of us would probably never heard of. Then you add in what people see on, young kids see on television and deem to be appropriate behavior. We've now had the formation of organized gangs in Bermuda, and then you put that on top of that. You have kids that have these adverse, or what we call ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, where they may have been sexually assaulted, or seeing their parents physically or mentally abused, or going hungry, or they lack of money. I can give you an example. When I was and I don't really want to show my age here, but in the 90s, I remember when I was working nights in Hampton. So I live in St. George, so I had to drive from St. George, and I would always, as a detective, I would always take the route of driving through Parsons Road and coming up through Court Street. Just a habit of mine. And some evenings when I would be driving through, I'm making 10 p.m. at night. I would come back a bit early, about 9:30. and I would see young kids in school gear walking along these streets. This is back in the 90s. So when we had that outbreak of violence, back in 2010 and 12, through those 2 or 3 bad years, that was probably the roots of that type of situation where these kids were unsupervised because maybe the parents had 2 jobs to make meets or whatever it was. So that's kind of some of the root causes of why these things happen. And then you dump on top of that, today we're dealing with a pandemic, a global pandemic that none of us thought we would ever see in our lifetime, which has created this economic strife, people losing their jobs, people now, young people have recently in this last spike lost their lives. So we're dealing with some really traumatic stress issues here. I think this yesterday was our 13th road traffic fatality. We've had 5 murders already this year, 3 with the use of firearms. It's really, really a feel in the community for me personally that is different. I was in New York last weekend, and you can just really feel the powerfulness of the difference. You have people, and you always have people that begged on the street and were homeless and they but it just, to me, it just feels different. And it's a worrying sign. And in order to prevent this, I think it's gonna take a community effort. It's not the police, it's not the government, it's not the education system, it's collaborative. If everyone doesn't get together and build a whole system whereby we can do assessments together, we share information, we share skills, we share resources, we share ideas. Because if we don't do that, we're silent, we're working in pockets, and over here I may be doing one thing, and over here someone else may be doing something and they may be 2 fantastic things, but if they're not joined up, then the efforts are probably not as good as they will be if we were one team. So it's really important, I think, in Bermuda with less money, less resources. You have these really strange feelings of coming in now. You have cyber crime. You have this real virtual space now where information can be shared really quickly. Where people have to work together, and if you don't work together, I think we're gonna get left behind.
Well, when you talk about education and getting things out there, what is the role of the gang task force?
Okay, I think that might be a conversation for another, but I think Mr. Bean will probably be the best person to be able to share that with you. But for me, my concept of the gang task force is more not so much to work with the police, but it's kind of getting involved at the front end. So the gang task force for me should be really on the ground, engaging with these young men and women to a certain degree that are in these gangs and trying to divert them away from that, and doing everything possible to build programs and there's only so much you can do in Bermuda. So for example, if you have a young gang member who is caught up and he's done something to another gang who are now, because it seems like these gangs, they kind of look for you for a long time, right? They almost hunt you for life, it seems sometimes. So if he's done something, Bermuda, so be it, right? So if you have a program, I don't know, in the central parishes, and this guy lives in the west, how does he come and attend that program in the central and the guys in the central? So it's really being innovative as to how we design out these programs. So for me, the difficult thing with the gang task force is not to be too close with the police, because if they are, then the gang persons that they're dealing with are not going to have that trust in them, right? So it's got to be some information sharing, but at a really sensitive level, whereby somebody who they absolutely believe is going to do something really tragic, I think that will be the only time that they will share the information with the police. But otherwise, it should be information sharing at a general level. However, it's got to be where that trust is still in the gang task force to be able to fulfill that function of diverting these young people away from this life of gang crime.
All right. I'm gonna go to audience in a minute. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to share, and we'll get through as many as possible. But something I read that was very disturbing yesterday from is it Chief Inspector Pedro? I'm not sure the title.
His superintendent. Pedro.
Superintendent Pedro.
Yes.
My apologies. It was that there are people out here, adults, training children to be in gangs. Speak to us about the severity of this.
Yeah, so what happens in the gang world, right? You have persons that are not willing to pull the trigger, so they have to train what we call students or stooges to go out and do what is deemed a dirty work, right? Because the person that holds the bank, he or she doesn't want to get caught with their hands dirty, so they train up, or they recruit and train persons to go out and do that work. So I think in Bermuda, what we have, we generally have what we call armors, as someone that holds onto the firearm and when a job needs to be done, they give it to the person who's the stooge or the student to go out and commit the act of shooting. So it's nothing. I don't think that's a new trend in Bermuda. It's been happening for many years. It's unfortunate. It's frightening. But that's the type of life style that some of these people are involved in, and it's very unfortunate. That's my whole point around. We need to take a brighter stand or a greater stand against these types of people who are willing to, just really disrupt and destabilize our community based on seeking revenge, based on money, based on someone disrespecting them. Sometimes these things are so petty. Why somebody would take a life, it's unbelievable. When you debrief some of these guys, when they eventually say, "Hey, this is why I did or didn't do something," it's unbelievable that someone would take a life for these such petty behavior. And when we look at what's going on now, so as you know, we had the famous or the notorious Parkside gang that before had this big spat with 4-2 who were up on Gleebrook, Parkside generally down in Middletown and Court Street area. The 4-2 crew was generally a bit older and mature. The Parkside guys were basically up and coming, and they got into a spat. And what eventually happened is one crew got really wiped out. We lost a lot of lives over that unnecessarily, I must admit. And then the shooting kind of slowed down, because what happened was you had a lot of persons deceased, you had a lot of persons incarcerated, you had a lot of persons that left the island, and then you also have some persons that actually died in road traffic fatalities, some of our infamous gang members. So for a while, the shootings died down, culminating in 2019 when we actually didn't have any shootings. I'm thankful. And then as we see now, you have the gang 2.0, 3.0, as you want to call them, as they rebuild and reboot and they restart again. So you get the younger members that coming through. And now I actually find that it's more chaotic, because at least back in the day, you can actually identify who the leaders were, right? Now, although you can identify some of the leadership persons, there are people that don't want to listen to those leaders, so they go and do their own thing. So it's become more chaotic, and that actually makes it more dangerous. So that's kind of a frightening thing as well. But I think that personally, for me, I think the police have an excellent insight in we can do better, because I always think that we can do better. We have a fairly good insight into who is actually initiating and committing these acts, but the evidence part is what always kind of I wouldn't use the word lets us down, but it's the difficult part. It's always appears that the person that is the defendant, as opposed to the victim, the defendant always has a greater advantage. And in this criminal justice systems, that's what we have to live with, right? Because it's based on fairness, transparency, and people's rights in the Constitution. When you look at the higher things, so it's a challenge. It's complex in terms of peace, because people say, yeah, you in Bermuda's a small place, you know who these shooters are. Yeah, we do, but it's not as simple as just going out grabbing the shooter and putting them before the courts, because you have to have the requisite evidence to go with that. So I really understand people's frustration, because I'm frustrated too, because I know, just like you, I know as well, but we have to build a case before we can place someone before the courts, because it doesn't make sense putting someone before the courts or attempting to put someone before the courts, and the director of public prosecutions can tell you, hey, listen, you don't have a case here. Despite notwithstanding, we know that this may be the perpetrator. We have to build these cases strong, so that we can win the first time.
Yeah. Let's go to the audience. Nicole Keynes is asking, I'm sure Robin Hood has cameras. Are the police going to release still shots of the shooters, which can help the public identify them?
Yeah, excellent question by Nicole. Yes, I want to say they do have cameras. There is some footage. What we have is a senior investigation officer who actually runs the investigation. He will make a decision ultimately whether or not to release that footage based on how his investigation is going. So just listen out for that. In due course, we may or may not release that, because it's difficult for me to say yes or no, because that's always dependent on the impact that could have on the evidence. Sometimes it may be prejudicial, so we have to be very careful. We have to liaise very closely with the prosecutors as to whether or not this is a good idea or not, and if it will impact the actual outcome of the investigation and the ultimate court case.
All right, audience, if you have questions about this particular murder investigation or comments, I will be more than happy to share it about this particular murder investigation. I want to go back to something you said in the beginning. You mentioned that this was very different because, and this is what I had stated last night as well. I thought this was probably the most calculated that I've heard of. What makes it the most calculated? Now, you confirmed what made it the most calculated to me was there was more than one gun. Usually it's a rider and a shooter. That should concern people. One person, according to the report that I read, ran out and was met by the rider and the other shooter. I don't even know how crazy that even sounds, like if people understand how crazy that sounds, but that is another level, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say this is one of the more calculated. I would say it was probably better planned, because you've had some really terrible ones, terrible shootings as well. You know, you've had people shot in the house. You've had the fateful day down in Victor Scott Field when you had tons of children under flying kites and two gunmen coming and chase a man around the field and shoot him to death in front of kids. So you had the one where the gentleman walked into spinning wheel and shot someone. So we've had some really tragic shootings. However, this one is, like I said, is different in the sense that it was more planned, or I guess a better plan, because it's almost like they had a plan for the person to run out, the victim to run out, and then you have another shooter there waiting, which is frightening actually, because these guys are telling you that, listen, I'm not determined to hurt you, I'm determined to take you out, and that is really, really frightening. And that's my whole point. If that doesn't send a message to the wider community that, listen, if we don't get all involved, because I used to always have where people used to kind of criticize me, really say, listen, Daniels, your press conference is really negative. You're trying to scare people. But I'm not trying to scare people. What I'm saying is that, and my popular saying was, if you don't get involved and you know something, this can come to a place near you. And Bermuda's only so big, and this can happen. And it's been, and my saying has been demonstrated time and time again, where you have seen people in crowded locations where these shootings have occurred. And all I'm saying is that, yes, as I said up front, sometimes as police officers, we can sound insensitive, because all we're saying is, hey, people, come out and tell us what you know, notwithstanding all of the other issues that they have to deal with. And that's not what I'm saying, because there are other mechanisms that we have in place to keep those people safe as well. If majority of the community are good people, which they are, and they come together and they share this information, and we get most of the highly dangerous persons off the street, then we've kind of won, and we're the ones that are going to be a safer place and a better community for it. Whereas now, if everyone is running scared, the government have the run of the land. So for me, I can't appeal enough for persons to really, really, really come forward and really share their story. And for me, as a the person who I'm worked on both sides, both in the community side of policing as well as the criminal side of policing, I fully agree that we as policemen, we have to review and reflect and learn from some of our lessons as well. So we're not a perfect organization. That's why we look to some of our community members to really say, hey, listen, Daniels, maybe you could have done this or done that, and that probably would have made someone feel more comfortable to come forward. And that's why we've now added this web portal, because people are saying, they said, listen, if you had somewhere where we can share some of the footage that we get from these events, we may not want to talk to you personally, but we may want to send you some footage, and you for yourself can see who carried out these acts of crime. So that's something that we took on board and we implemented. So we now have an actual pool where people can share not only information, but they can share footage, which is, I think it's, a very innovative way. And that stuff can also, if we retrieve it in the right way, can also be used in evidence. So that's the powerful tool.
But I think even with that, while the majority think that it was a great thing, there was some reservations by some in the public saying, oh, now the police want our help. And that's another cultural mindset shift that we need, is getting people to understand, okay, yeah, you got a speeding ticket, you got a parking ticket, you're mad at the police, right? Look, none of us want those things. But at the end of the day, we need to work with the police to ensure that we, have a safer environment. I think that's part of the challenge we're dealing with. There is people just don't feel like they want to help the police, and not understanding it's not actually about the police, it's about the community in itself. Carla John has a question: is part of the problem that parents don't recognize what gang activity looks like?
See,
I was just gonna ask that.
And that's another excellent question. And how I preface that is, I think some years ago we did a number of presentations in some of our senior high schools and at the Bermuda College, and we actually went around some of the schools and identified some various gang symbols. And when we spoke to a number of the teachers, they didn't realize that this actually symbolized members of a gang. So that's why I say that's a great question, because you may see something and don't believe that, hey, what is this? And you may just overlook it when it is, some sign of your son or daughter being a part of something that they shouldn't be. The other important thing for me is that in terms of parents, we know now that lots of young kids, maybe as young as 4 or 5, are given these cell phones. It's always important that, particularly when they're in the later primary and middle school ages, that parents take the time to ask the kids what are they doing on their phones, taking the opportunity to look. Don't let them put a password on the phone where you can't get into the phone to actually see what information they're sharing and what they're up to, because it's very important that you see that type of stuff, and that can actually lead to you cutting something before it actually starts. So that's very important. So that's a very good question. I would say that generally members of the community who are hardworking, everyday law-abiding citizens are unlikely to know what gang symbols are. So maybe a bit more awareness by the police in a more public sense will be helpful. So that I've made a note of that, and I'll speak to our gang team about trying to put together maybe some presentations where maybe we can share something, maybe on our Facebook page or in the local media and some of the social media streams where we can get it out there. These are some of the signs and symbols to look out for. So thank you for that.
Yeah, sure.
Let me just add to that, Antoine, in regards to not just the signs and symbols, but even something for parents to be aware in regards to older gentlemen or other people trying to groom their children. What does that look like? Because if you have, a single parent, and I wouldn't even say a single mother, but just a single parent who may not be able to supervise their child all the time, may not understand why this person is coming around or why this child is gravitating to these different areas. So putting something also in place that parents also are made aware, because we understand it's a generational gap, right? And so what children are into, excuse me, and what parents are used to is a vast difference. So is there something that can also be like a parent forum or something of that nature that parents can get involved and be able to see what this, if it's role played or anything like that?
And Sherry, that's another important question. And you heard me allude to earlier about this collaborative or partnership working. So if you have the relevant agencies, I don't know if whether it be DCFS, education, some of the non-NGOs, SCARS and the like, Family Center, if we had, where we come together, you can build something like that, because people, obviously the police would know the crime side. These other entities can give advice on parenting, that type of thing. So if you have a collaborative effort, you can build a whole system whereby such a portal or advice can be developed. So yeah, I take that fully on board, that working together is the answer for me, in particularly in those problems. Because if you have a single parent, as you say, who maybe, I don't know, working 2 jobs or even working a single job that's lots of hours, and they can't always supervise their young kids, it's very important that not only that they teach them and embed the right values, and ethics into their upbringing, but they also aid that and support that with some of these more professional inputs, where that the kids are really super sure of what they should and shouldn't be doing.
Alrighty, let's go back to the audience. We have this is one I was thinking of too. O'Brien Osborne's asking, is there an observed trend where the offspring, past victims of gun violence, are now involved in acts of retribution / joining gangs?
Yeah, I mean that it's kind of, how can I say, it's kind of too young in this game to really say that. However, there is some evidence that in Bermuda we have what we will consider crime families, right? So you would have, whereby you would have a father, a son, a grandson, all following each other in the same life of crime. I haven't seen it so much in the gang realm as much. However, I do have some concerns, because I know in one particular case in particular, whereby a kid witnessed his father being murdered. I'm not going to say which particular case, where he was having some issues and had to actually undertake psychological counseling, which I think is a good step and a positive step, where he was saying, listen, when I grow up, I'm gonna, seek revenge for my father. So that's a potential something that we have to look at down the road. And that's why, again, I know I sound like a broken record. That's why we can't solely rely on one agency to try to, arrest this problem. We need a really, really collective group. And even in because I lead a group called IGET, Interagency Enforcement, which includes Bermuda Police, Customs and Corrections, Court Services, DCFS, and we actually have a meeting at 10:30 this morning. And our emphasis is really on trying to, for each department, to try to give each other as much assistance as possible, and try to problem solve some of the issues that we may be having in our individual agencies, and the problems may transcend with the same individuals that come through all of it, and then you can problem solve in that form. It's really helpful, because people have different skills, different ideas, and some people's visions are different for these innovative approaches to how to resolve and approach these problems. So it's very important. So that's a big concern around these persons witnessing these traumatic events,
Mhm.
then growing up, because obviously data has shown that people who grow up in these type of environments are more likely to repeat these behaviors. So yes, that's a big concern, of course, of the police. Although that's not a police function, it's obviously a big concern of the police.
All right. I remember it was years ago, and it may have been your now colleague Gary Moreno, but it was someone in the media asking. Then I could be wrong, but I'll just say I believe it was Terry Lister. It was whoever was overseeing the Ministry of National Security, and it probably wasn't even called that back then. But the question was about gangs, and I believe they denounced it, saying like Bermuda doesn't have gangs, right?
Yeah.
Is that a sign that Bermuda failed to act too early, and now this is the result? Because I said something yesterday that, where we are today is a result of what we did 5 years ago. Would you say that we our preventative measures, we got it wrong, and now we're in a place where we can actually use what's happening now to become better, going forward?
Yeah, I think lessons learned is always important. You should always learn from previous errors. I remember what you're talking about. They said it wasn't gangs; it was organized groups. It was just organized groups. So it wasn't to the level of gang. And then until the spat broke out between actually Parkside and 4-2 is when people designated it as gangs. But I think we always, in a policing context, we always thought it was gangs. But I think what was happening really was the sensitivity around it. So you didn't want to kind of, how can I say, you didn't want to kind of scaremonger. So you didn't want people in Bermuda to say, oh, this conservative country, oh no, it's gangs, it's guns, I think that's what really happened. So people were trying to downplay it, but were fully aware that in the background, this was brewing, and we saw that viciously in 2000 through 2009, 2010. I think in 2010 we had something like 250 firearms incidents. Then the year before we probably had one. So it just shows you how that exploded suddenly, and police had to do things differently. Government had to do things differently. The various agencies had to do something differently. We had to amend certain legislation. All of these things had to be done really, really quickly because, as you say, Jamal, under these unique circumstances, we didn't recognize what was coming, and I think, to be fair, it would have been difficult to predict that you would have had these guys, in what is, I think we're up to something like close to 70 murders since 2009. I think
69. Yes,
69. I think it will be difficult for anyone to predict that would happen. We knew that it would be some level of, shootings and stabbings and the like, but 70 I think is kind of over the top. And I wouldn't say it took us by surprise, but I just think it's a unique set of circumstances here in Bermuda.
Yeah, we're gonna wrap it up, but let's just go through the facts of this particular murder case. And I want to go back to something that I read from the press release and witnessed during the press conference. Now, what was said was that obviously CCTV footage showed that the gunman got to Benroon Lane, that's in off North Shore. Looks like they went over North Shore to Benroon Lane onto Glebe Road. What happens after that? Are you looking for people to from that point on to give you information?
Yeah. So the reason why in any press conference, the lead investigator, Pete Stapleford, would share that level or detail of information will be because we're trying to build, the route that they took from wherever they came from, because obviously the gunmen originated from somewhere, right? They didn't just show up or wasn't born at Robin Hood. They came from somewhere. So it's important in these type of investigations to try to build a side picture of where they came from. So when you're, before the courts, you can say, listen, some of the aggravating factors are 1, 2, 3. which makes your case a lot stronger. I think you was asking another question when we were off here around. Okay, well, you're saying these guys are part of Parkside. Why are they in the 44-2 why in 4-2 area? Well, there's first of all, Parkside is splintered, right? Which we was trying to say. So you have Parkside persons as far east as St. George's. So in between Taunton and St. George's, for them, there are no-go areas. They travel quite freely between these areas, right? Because they are all over, between predominantly central, right? But you have a small fraction that are congregating in St. George's, and they are aware that we know who they are down there in St. George's. So that will be the reason. And the other thing that's important to note, Jamal, is that although these guys may be a part of Parkside or Darkside, whatever they want to call themselves, they all generally grew up in the central area, right? So whether it's Glebe, whether it's Middletown, whether it's in and around Corshey, whether it's Spanish Point, it's somewhere in that kind of that central area. You know, so I think it's a group, some of them on Barclay Road near the school. So it's they grow in and around the Pembroke area. And what happened was when they splintered, they had this infighting. Some, ran and went to St. George's so they can be away from this other group. And that's what we think is happening, whereby the ones in St. George's have links, obviously, to some that still live in town, who are they getting to facilitate these unfortunate and nasty incidents. So that's what's happening. So there is no surprise to the police if whether you see these guys in Devonshire or Hamilton Parish or wherever, because there are no-go areas for these gang members.
Gotcha. I know we have to let you run. Just want to wrap it up with these comments from the audience. Renee Sherilyn Simmons, is it true that these younger gang members have a different mentality? We are dealing with Generation Z now. They are more fearless and looking for control of their gang, so it's competitive amongst them to prove themselves by committing heinous acts. The O'Brien Osborne says, is there a representative from education on the inter-task force? And I'll just wrap it up with Dexter Smith, and you can answer that all in once. Dexter Smith says, don't have much time here, but I would say it is take away their oxygen. Women. Behind a majority of these evil criminals is a young woman who enable and cover for them. Raise and protect our young women better, and we will take a huge slice out of the attraction of being a gangbanger. Not the be-all and end-all, but a significant factor. We should be banging down doors as I type, with men and women being led away in handcuffs. In the most concise manner, all three of those comments and questions.
Yeah, for me, the last one first. I wish I can. I wish we can go back to. I don't wish because we evolved, but it's not as simple as what Daxter says, kicking in doors and the like. Because now, in today's world, it's become, how can I say, people do not hesitate to take a lawsuit out on the police and the like. So you have to have the requisite facts before you kick in anyone's door. You have to be on have the legal framework. And in terms of a young woman behind the man, I don't want to be this sexist guys, but I think from the most part, I came up in a single parent home. I think I turned out okay, and a lot of us other males see. So I don't want to make that an excuse that there are, because I think the women, without the women that we have in our community, many of us will be zero. So I really reject that statement, although there are certain individual females that do support this behavior, but so are there fathers that support this behavior by not being there or not being fathers. So I'm not going to take one side over the other. And in terms of the question around education, yes, there is a representative from education on our IGET team. Is very important to have their input, because ultimately the young persons that are coming up who are likely to commit these criminal acts, they begin in our education system. However, it's a very sensitive topic because education, because of our information sharing regulations and laws, it's very difficult for them to share that type of information. I don't recall the first question, Jamal, was one, I think you put out, the one about Generation Z.
Yes.
I don't even think I need to answer that. We see that now people are less tolerant,
Mhm.
more quickly to pick up a gun rather than a fist.
Mhm.
They'll shoot you rather than punch you, and they'll shoot you for a lot less. Before, I think we had the 3 R's. What was it? Revenue, respect,
Revenge.
and revenge. Those were the 3 R's before we were seeing in the game. Or else, but sometimes, and if we look at this tragic event that happened at Robin Hood, and we think of the revenge aspect, what are we to expect? So obviously, police are gearing up for that, and we're trying to suppress and target the persons who we believe are most likely to try to commit these acts of revenge. So we're all ready for that. Well, and we're gonna do our best to keep Bermuda safe, and we feel pretty confident that we know who the bad guys are involved in this particular incident.
Commissioner Daniels, thank you so much for this.
Thank you.
And we'll do our best to continue sharing the facts that have been presented to us and keep the conversation going. Not just to help with this murder investigation, but obviously we've had some of your colleagues and yourself one in the past to speak about preventative measures. So thank you, and I hope that audience, if you know someone that knows someone that may know something, let's do it for the community.
Say it.
Have a great one. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jamal and Sherry. Have a great day, and thanks for the opportunity.
No problem.
All right, take care.
All righty, folks. Thanks again to the Bermuda Police Service and Assistant Commissioner of Police, Antoine Daniels, for coming by and sharing the information that he did. We'll do our best to share some of the facts. They have been available on many of the news outlets as well, the facts of this case. We're going to take a quick break, end it on a more positive note with the Daily Play and some daily inspiration for you. Don't go anywhere.
Same smooth sounds, different name. BCG Radio. Tune in every Tuesday through Sunday at 7 p.m. Bermuda time as we bring you the love, romance, sexiness with nighttime jams. Only on your station for conversations and entertainment. BCG Radio. Download the app, available for Android and Apple devices.
All right, welcome back. Thanks again to Assistant Commissioner of Police, Antoine Daniels, for stopping by. If you appreciated the conversation, found the information helpful, please don't just like, love, but please share these kinds of conversations to ensure that everyone receives this information that is going to be and should be helpful for the community going forward. Again, the focus of the conversation today was literally supposed to be on the murder investigation. We've had other officers on, including Assistant Commissioner Daniels in the past, to discuss preventative measures and the causes and now the effects. So sometimes we have to be extremely focused, not playing a blame game, but an assist game, if that makes sense to you. Sherry, thanks again to One Communications, Linda's, People's Pharmacy, and Medical House for ensuring that we're able to have these important conversations as well. Any final thoughts on today's show, Sherry?
Just again, thank you to Antoine for coming on and providing such, relevant and very concise information. I think, in past times, the police haven't been always I wouldn't say forthcoming, but hadn't shared as much as they have at the very beginning. So this is refreshing in that sense, that we want to get this information out. I do hope that anybody who knows anything will say anything, and will also find a part to educate the community. And I think that's the most important.
Indeed. And again, I can't thank the Bermuda Police Service enough for trusting our platform to have this discussion with Sherry and myself and the audience, most of all. And so appreciate it. Hope if you require any additional information that maybe you didn't hear, you can reach out to us and we can definitely pass that along to them on your behalf, and we can get you the answers that we seek. But hopefully the information is helpful. But on that note, let's end it on a good note. If you haven't already, folks, you see a lot more Facebook than YouTube today. Don't forget to go to our YouTube page. Make sure you subscribe, because one day we may not just be on Facebook. We might just be on YouTube. Make sure you go over to YouTube and subscribe, so you can ensure that you stay in these kinds of important conversations. But it's time for the Daily Play, brought to you by Heineken 0.0. Great taste, no alcohol. Sherry, are you ready?
Hey, come on, Jamal. Let's,
All right.
you know.
It's a name that place. It's a name that place. It's a pattern here. We asked you on Tuesday the year that Michael Jackson's Thriller album was released. Yesterday, we asked you the lyrics to the song that would be Thriller. Today's question is also about Michael Jackson. What state was Michael Jackson born in?
Indiana.
Wow. My goodness.
That I knew.
Mike,
2300 Jackson Street. I knew that. I knew it was Indiana.
you know what city in Indiana?
I feel like it was Gary. I'm not
Oh,
sure.
man, she's on the world, folks. Gorilla. Michael Jackson was born in Gary, Indiana. So it's been a tough show today. It's been a lot of information shared. Yes, Michael Jackson was born in Gary, Indiana. But do you have some daily inspiration to send us off on our day, Sherry?
I sure do. You cannot have a positive life and a negative mind. Very key right now. Very key. And that's by Joyce Meyer.
Indeed. Thank you for that, Sherry. And thank you all for tuning in, continuing to trust us to have these conversations. Tomorrow, we have another very good show with Keisha Allen Smith talking about 77 ways stress-free, folks. Stress-free. I love it. And you know what? We're going to give away one of her books tomorrow. All right. We all need to find ways to de-stress, if that's
Yes.
the word. Yeah, de-stress. All right. Thanks again to our partners, Medical House One Communications, Lindos, and People's Pharmacy, for ensuring that we're able to do this with you on a daily basis. As always, we appreciate you, we love you, and we thank you for making us part of your daily routine. If all goes well, we'll be back to do this again with you tomorrow. She's Sherry Vanderpool. I'm Jamel Hartman. My friends, please do make it a great and safe day.
Bye.
I don't have my mug.
And